Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Medina, and I work for Global Marketing at Orange Cyberdefense. Our objective for this session is to take you through the journey to secure your IT and OT convergence. Now, we know how organizations tend to be stuck in a reactive stance towards security, and as a result, the vast majority have suffered breaches to their industrial control systems. I presume that if you've joined the session, it's because you're probably facing this challenge every day in your role. Therefore, we brought our subject matter experts to share their views and expertise on how IT and OT can collaborate synergically to keep your business safe. Now, make yourself comfortable and let's see which topics our experts are going to cover today. So firstly, we will share an overview of the OT and AT convergence environment, followed by how to assess the risk to your OT environment, and finally find out where your assets are and how they're interconnected, but especially why it is important to know where they are. Now, we've put some time aside as well to answer your questions. This is the second session around OT we have. Last time we had a plethora of questions and we couldn't answer them all, but we'll do our utmost to try and answer as many of them by the end of the session today. The talk presentation will be recorded indeed, and we'll send the recording probably tomorrow morning, so keep an eye out on an email for that. Now, allow me to introduce our panelists. So firstly, I'd like to welcome Jean-Christophe Mathieu, who's head of industrial security program at Orange Cyberdefense. And Jean-Christophe, also known as JC, is based in Lyon, where we also have our OT demo center, and Lyon, France. Anastasia and Oscar are both based in Sweden, in our Orange Cyberdefense Swedish office. And while Anastasia is team lead for OT ICS cybersecurity, Oscar is senior OT ICS security consultant. And finally, Stéphane, who's based in a French Paris headquarters. He is OT business developer, and he will also be sharing a very insightful demo around our asset inventory tool. So make sure you don't miss out on that. Now, I don't want to spoil it further, so I will ask JC if he can take the lead in this journey.
Thank you, Medina. Thank you, Medina, for the introduction, and welcome everybody. Welcome for this IT-OT convergence security session. So first of all, maybe a short reminder. When we are talking today about OT, we are talking about every devices that are making our daily lives, and thinking about factories, of course, could be for managing installation of a conveying system like this, but also hospital, could be many things like a tunnel, like energy producing or transportation, a metro or subway. This is something really important, that all those systems are today making our daily life. Next slide, please, Medina. When we are talking about IT-OT convergence, now that's really a reality. We are not thinking about the future. When you have a look on this control room, which is very large with many screens, as you can imagine, there is not a computer behind each screen. There is, of course, virtualization. And all those things are made to control industrial systems. This webinar will be a way to see how the IT-OT convergence is now impacting your organizations. We will not go in very technical details because that's not the aim of the purpose today. We will give you some lessons learned from our asset inventory, from our audits at customer site, and also trying to bring you some good information to have a chance to manage in the best way your IT-OT convergence challenge and also the security of it, of course. So next slide, please. Today, what we can see from a governance perspective in most of the organization is that IT people, and I'm thinking about security people, the CISO mainly, or the CIO, are now involved and requested by top management, CEOs, and C-levels to protect industrial installations. But of course, they are just responsible of the security of it. And people from maintenance, from production, from quality services are in charge of managing the quality of the production itself, the maintainability of the tools, of the machines, and of course, the productivity of the machines. And that's, as you can imagine, an issue from a governance perspective. You have people that are responsible to protect something that they are not managing, and vice versa. People have to produce with tools, security tools that they are not managing. So today we are facing a problem which is in between IT and OT. And when we are talking about IT-OT convergence, of course, we are talking about people. We are talking about technological things, but also regarding processes, how to manage IT and OT people around the same machine. And this is a very high-level decision makers to take this into account, because the answer is in the governance of the enterprise. Next slide, please, Marina. So what I'm really asking every day since the 10 last years, and unfortunately, it's still in place. There is still a conflict between IT and OT. And that's very simple. People are not having the mindset. People are not having the same culture, but they are more and more using the same kind of tools. They are not having the same everyday life in a factory, in a shop floor, but they are using, or they start to use, the same tools. So please, people that are listening today and all the people you are working with, please, we have to try to work all together to stop this conflict and create something more global. Next slide, please. And when I said, let's work together, that's for a common target. That's to protect our system, the system that are making our life goods, because we are all having water, electricity, transportation, and within this COVID period, we have hospital and people who can take care of us, which is very important. But an hospital is using medical gases and many other devices that are industrial system. They are not in a factory, they are not in a shop floor, but there are things, there are devices protecting your life. And all together, as a same team, with a team spirit, we have to protect all those systems. So when I said, please, and the conflict between IT and OT, it's simply because on each or most of our customer meeting, our customer audits, we feel this, and sometimes this is very rude, very complicated to be in between. So please try to get this team spirit to have a chance to protect the system. Next slide, please. So our common objective, of course, is to target the performance. We know that the attacks today are more and more complicated, more and more sophisticated. And I think that many of you have seen that during the last weekend. Something very strange happened in Iran. We don't know if it's exactly a cyber attack or whatever else, but cyber attacks are more and more complicated. Is it Stuxnet 3.0 or something else? We don't know. But what we could say is that our common objective is to protect and to target the performance, to protect in a secure way all the industrial system. Next slide, please. Before to try to run 100 meters in less than 10 seconds, there was one thing we have to do all together. It's to learn how to walk. And the first steps, it's exactly what we are presenting to you today, is how to learn to walk in an IT-OT convergence world for the security approach. And this small baby trying to learn is having some support to learn the way. And it's exactly what we are offering to you every day with our portfolio and all the things we've got inside. Next slide, please. So I'm coming from a vendor approach, and I know exactly what it is selling devices. You could have the best tool, you could have the fastest car, you could have the best equipment from the market. All the solutions will deliver you miracles from a vendor perspective. But we all know that having a device is one thing, being able of driving it is another thing. And being able of managing it is important, but please do not believe everything that are said to you. Each devices are not able to create miracle in your factory. What is important is to well understand what you want to do with your equipment, what will be the solution you will have, and how to put it in place, and how you will be supported in the management and in the installation and the commissioning of this device. So choose the right equipment. And if you go for a Ferrari or something like this, before it, next slide, please. sometimes a few driving lessons are necessary. What is the mind of this? I'm not saying that no one is not able to manage any devices. I'm just saying regarding the solution you will decide to have on your installations, you will need to learn how to use it, how to manage it, and how to use the added value that these devices will create. And what is also interesting in the image with a school, a driving school, is that when you are learning to drive, you are also learning what are all the risks you have around you on the road. And it's exactly the same thing. By buying new devices to protect your factory, your shop floor, you will have to understand how to use the solution. So that's the driving lessons. And you also have to understand clearly what you are trying to protect your installation against and what are all the risks remaining on your installation. And on that point, I would like to give the floor now to Anastasia and Oscar to give you some hints and feedback on how to assess the risk on your installation. Thank you for listening and talk to you for the question. Anastasia, Oscar?
Thank you, Jean-Christophe, for passing the floor. Hello, everyone. I think that today's situation is not normal. The threats are increasing, especially during the current situation when remote access solution is one of the most popular one among customers, as you need to keep your production running with minimum people on site. And hence, IT becomes highly intertwined with your production environment, and as it is the way for you to keep the business running. At the same time, you do your best to collect as much data as possible for better productivity and for optimization, but we here need to keep the security in mind, because each established link is an exploitation point for malicious activity. And naturally, we are opening up our OT environment the ways that we don't usually realize. We expose information and the ways in there that we would not deliberately do. So we need to address the risks. Next slide, please.
If we forget about cybersecurity for a while and just start thinking about the worst possible scenario, what is your worst nightmare? What is the worst thing that could happen to your sites? And now think about a system that prevents this from happening. Do you know which one of your system is the most critical one? Now, this system that prevents a disaster from happening, is it fully protected? Next slide, please. The root cause of a disaster can be either an intrinsic process or a cyber attack. If we take a chemical plant for an example, a valve can be manipulated by a control system and cause a chemical spill. That could affect a lot of people in the surrounding area and the environment as well. Or if a temp sensor value could be changed, that could have devastating consequences like a fire or an explosion. If I take another example, the communication between two systems were cut by mistake. This led to a failure that caused a steel furnace to freeze, a failure that took the process offline for several months.
Or we can take the recipe theft. If your personnel installs enough data collection points, for example, IT for predictive maintenance, it will be possible to reverse engineer your recipe of the production. In the beginning of an incident, you won't be able to tell what was the root cause of the incident unless you do a proper investigation to find it out. Therefore, you should minimize the risk of a disaster being caused by a cyber attack. If a cyber attack happens, it will not be just a pump losing a pressure somewhere locally, but it will be a malicious code proliferating both to your production and IT environment, and it will bring losses either immediately or in several months. So minimizing the risk of a cyber attack being caused by causing the disaster will limit the scope of possible threats to your environment. Next slide, please. Yeah, so considering the threats, we should all remember that we have things to lose. Critical consequences of an incident can be an employee injury or loss of lives on site, power outage or damage to critical infrastructure, damage to equipment or goods, loss of intellectual property as the recipe theft I mentioned before, the income loss, and the image of the company, causing the bad reputation that you do not pay enough attention to the security of your production. Next slide, please.
The global risk are all of the risks. In the Swedish and French language, we don't separate safety and security as you do in English. We only have one word for it, säkerhet, sécurité. This is the mindset that is needed to succeed when you're doing your risk analysis. We need to combine the OT and IT risks and work together to be successful in this process. It's not an OT risk or an IT risk, it's a global risk. But first of all, you need to know what to protect and where to start. Find the most critical systems. We can quickly see if a system is critical or not, and if it needs protection. Not all OT systems are critical. How is this global risk handled today, Anastasia?
Yeah, so the next slide then. Global risks affect us all, and it's a common and it is a collective responsibility. And there are several layers to it. We can say on the local level, between IT and IT, it should be clear that cybersecurity is not just an IT problem. It is a common, it is a shared concern. You need to secure your site, and the ownership of security should be on asset owners, and it should be on production. But how do you do it if you don't know your site? You need to document it, and you need to mitigate the risks. On a regional level, we can say on a company-wide level, the responsibility lies in CISO's hands. Nowadays, CISO is the one who signs off the risks. Hence, CISO should be supported. They should have knowledge about both your IT infrastructure and your production, as the CISO is the one who plans the budget. And finally, the global responsibility, it is something, if something happens in your OT environment, it doesn't stay in OT only. It has a cascade effect on the whole business and other companies, and the whole supply chain and other businesses within the field. So negligence can lead to all of those critical consequences that we mentioned before. Next slide, please.
In order to protect what you have, you need to know what you have and know how your site works. An overview isn't enough. You need to know all the details. But how do you get that insight? Not all OT systems are critical, so start with an asset inventory. Stefan, can you tell us about that?
Thank you, Anastasia and Oscar. You should by now have a good overview of the potential risk to your industrial control system. If you are ready, I will present you the Orange Cyber Defense Asset Inventory. Next slide, please. The first question that comes to mind is, why do we need to map our industrial control system? Here is my answer. If you want to better protect your ICS, the first step and the most important is to have a deeper knowledge of your ICS. During the last year, I have done a lot of customer meetings around the ICS protection, and I have identified two types of customers. Those who think they know their ICS perfectly, and those who think that they don't need to know their ICS. Unfortunately, both of them are wrong. As Jean-Christophe explained at the beginning of this webinar, industrial systems have a very long operating life cycle and evolve during this cycle. All the documentation like electrical plant or list of equipment and communication between assets are often not mastered. Next slide, please. How do you imagine protect your ICS if you don't know all its components? It's like trying to find your way on the road. Let's put the odds on our side and lighting up the weather. Our customers are often told by detection solution provider that they just have to connect a sensor in the network and they would automatically have all the necessary information. It's not completely wrong. Yes, you do receive some information, but you don't have any context, and you are still not sure if you have identified all assets because it's dependent on where you have connected your sensor. That's why we have developed a specific method and tool to help identify the assets. On the next slide, we have a proven methodology. When we make an asset inventory of your factory, we start by make a passive listening, exhaustive list of network flow to define future segmentation rules or refine current rules. We make a discrete network discovery, like scan with no impact on production to discover new equipment. We collect the configuration, recovery of application and operating system from industrial station, hardware configuration, and request to PLCs to obtain an application version. And we make several interview and visits with photos, understanding how the system works and identify its isolated equipment to anticipate protection solution. On the next slide, you will find what we can provide with an asset inventory. Our tool provides the following deliverables. First of one, Visio file with different architecture, Excel files with the equipment inventory that can use to update AMDB, for example, and dynamic reports with all data available in one location. Now I will show you a demonstration of an anonymous dynamic reports. Can I share my screen now? If it's possible. Okay. Normally now you see my screen, and I have a dynamic report that have been done in a French factory, and we remove all information that is only used by the customer. You have here two types of view. The first one is a diagram. I will come back after present to you the list view. Here you have some different lists. For example, here you have the physical view where you will find all assets that we have identified on the customer plants. For example, here you have a PLC, you have all the cards of the PLC. You can find the type, the reference from the constructor, the version, and the serial number. Another view of this, you can, on the list, you have to the logical view. You will find the name of the slot, the MAC address, the IP address, and the netmask. This can be very interesting to be able to have a global overview of the IP address map. Now, I propose to you to go to the flow list, and here you will find all the communications that we have recording during the asset inventory, and you will be able to understand the equipment sources and the equipment destination, the protocol that is used, and the port and the source and the destination. Now, if we go back to the main menu, you will see the logical view. As you know, with the ISA 195, you have several levels, and here you will find all the assets that we have identified. And here, for example, you have some IO, remote IO equipment with a Profibus communication. And here on the level 1, you will find all the PLC and HMI equipment. And on the level 2, the different SCADA system. If we want to have more details for one equipment, you can click directly on the equipment, and we will find what we have as information from this topic. Here you have the branch, the type, the branch, location, and so on. And this information are really important if you want, for example, put a detection solution. And if you have one problem, you have all the information to put on the system and give to the OT guys that have to manage this detection. And it will be more efficient if you can send to him all this information. Now you have all the cards that's inside the equipment, the different communication card and information. Here we have a Profinet communication and a Profibus communication. And after that, you will find what I said to you, some picture of the installation. Here we have take a picture of the asset, and you can have all view of the installation. We can add to more context picture if you need it. And after, at the end of the description, you will find all the information regarding the output flow and the input flow. Now, if we go back to the other diagram, you will find the flow, excuse me. And here you have a complete overview and a synthetic overview of how the different assets communicate between the assets. Okay. And for example, what I told to you, if you install maybe a sensor here in the high level topic, you will see some information, but not all information, like this part or this part, because in this level, you don't have any communication between this topic and this part of the installation. And for example, if the most critical parts of your plant is this one, you will lose the information that is really important for you. I have finished for this. Let's go back to the presentation, and I will present to you the different benefits of this asset inventory. Now, as you can see, you have several benefits. You have identification of the sensitive equipment. You discover the POSIX attack path, assessment of vulnerability impact. It's a very important step for the preparation of the implementation of protection solution. You can manage the end of life of your equipment. You can make an integration of in your CMMS. And what is really important, you make an IT OT Teams federation. I hope you enjoyed this presentation and that we will have the pleasure of being able to discuss around this subject together. Thank you.
Thank you to all the speakers. So we have a couple of questions. So you can all come back with your cameras on and see what. So a first question, maybe for you, Jean-Christophe. There are so many in market in OT cybersecurity field. How do you How do you differentiate them from other vendors? What are the unique features at Orange Cyber Defense?
So, if I well understood the question, first remark: the OT market, the OT security market is very small, and it could be many solutions for many people, but in fact there is just a few. If we compare it to IT, we are talking about maybe less than 5% of existing solutions for OT security. That's a very small market today. That's the first point. But of course, there is a lot of vendors saying we have OT solutions. So what is unique for Orange Cyber Defense? It's our approach. That's really this kind of hybrid team, and I'm really happy today because around the table we have more people coming from the OT field than people coming from the IT field. That's really showing that Orange Cyber Defense is creating an hybrid team to have IT and OT people around the table. That's one of the first thing. And what is really unique is the approach that we are pushing to the market. We are not talking all the time about maturity assessment. I don't know what we're talking about, the risk, because when you are running an industrial installation, what is your main concern is the risk that you are encountering and you maybe have to face tomorrow and how to recover them. That's the first thing. Then there is a technological aspect. We are using products from the market, but coming from the IT market and also from the OT market. We have this chance being able of mixing solutions. And another thing which is completely almost unique is that we are testing all the solutions that we are offering to the customer in our demo center. And this demo center is of course intended to receive customer, to show them our knowledge. Unfortunately, due to the COVID crisis, we have to use some Visio system to present our demo center to the customer. But all the solutions that we are pushing to a customer have been tested in a real environment, in a production environment before. So that was the, what is differentiating us, I think, is the main point listed just before.
Thank you. So we got another question. Does Orange have SIEM functionality, or can it be integrated with any reputed SIEM vendor?
I don't know if someone wants to answer. Anastasia, Oscar, maybe. Okay,
I didn't
not
really
so much
understand the question.
So. Yeah, I understood. So maybe I will answer. Yeah, of course. All the logs that are generated by OT fields and OT system could be integrated in any SIEM. As far as the SIEM is able to manage syslog messages or SNMP things, that will be possible to manage logs coming from OT technologies. So it could be Splunk, it could be QRadar, it could be a Kibana plus Elasticsearch, or I don't know what. All the SIEMs that are very well known on the market could receive information from OT systems.
Okay, great. We've got another question coming in. What are the building blocks of the Orange solutions? How do you capture traffic?
Is it regarding the Ascent's inventory, or is it in the whole of it? Because there are many different ways of capturing data.
Yeah, I think we need a bit more
Context.
Yeah, to answer correctly to that one.
If AJ can give us more details. If not, in the meantime, I've got another question here. Bear with me. Many cybersecurity solutions seem to have their management console in the cloud. I don't find that acceptable for critical infrastructure, for example. What is your view? What is your view? Is convergence reasonable here?
Not at all.
Nope. If it's a critical infrastructure, don't use the cloud for it.
And when I said before that we are testing solutions in our demo center regarding the the solution itself, really often when the management console is in the cloud, the answer is we will not do tests and we will not integrate it for OT systems if we are talking about critical systems. For us, that's not an option. Critical system will not be in the cloud, not today.
Very nice. So there's the same person who asked the question earlier. It's just added a little bit more detail, which is, which control system vendors have you worked with?
Control system. So we are talking about the ICS world. So we are three guys, and we are all coming from this world. So Stefan and Oscar will answer because I'm answering too much. So Stefan, Oscar, let you do.
Yeah, I worked with it was vendors. So yeah, Siemens, Mitsubishi, ABB, Emerson. Yeah, there's a lot of them.
Yes, and for me, it's not easy to give a complete answer because I have worked more than 20 years on the industrial environments, and I have worked with for a system integrator. I think I have worked with Emerson, ABB, Siemens, Schneider, and so on. Yes, I cannot give you a complete view, but during 20 years, I have worked with a lot of vendors, different vendors.
I have a question now. Which components of Orange Cyber Defense are installed at level 2, level 3, etc.?
So if we are talking
this is related
about
to the question before.
Yeah. If we are talking about the SIME pyramid, so level 2 and 3, we're talking about SCADAs and level 3 MES, MOM, historians, things like this. It depends of the criticality, of the installation we are protecting. As an example, for, I will say, simple installation, we will use firewalls, sensors to detect and monitor traffic, of course. But if we are getting to more critical installation, we can use what's the name in English? Security gateway. That's in between data diode and firewall. And if we are on very critical installation, we will use data diodes to separate very precisely and in a very secure manner all those installation between the different levels. The tool and the solution we are using are really depending on the risks and the criticality of the installation. That's why Oscar and Anastasia explain you very clearly and in detail the risk approach, because that's the basic of protecting installation. Any comments or remarks, colleagues?
No, I think you got it all.
Great. Thanks, Gav. Thanks, Jesse. Just one question. I think this is maybe for Stefan. Is the asset inventory tool in-house developed by Orange Cyber Defense, or is it based on technology partners? Well, there's a reference here, such as Nozomi.
No, we have tried to use standard tools, and every time we have the impress that we don't have all the information necessary for make the better protection, ICS protection, and we have decided to develop our own tools, and we have made the developments by some technician guy from OCD, and we use a lot of different technology. And what is really important is to go on site and to discuss with the OT people and to understand how they use their equipment.
Thanks for that. One more question. As an OT strategy, should we consider patch management, MDM security tools like anti-malware? Or shall we just contain the OT in a segregated environment? If segregated is the best option, what if some OT devices need to communicate with cloud-based apps?
With what? Excuse me. The last word you've pronounced, I did not get.
If the option is segregated, so if segregated is the best option, what happens if some OT devices require to communicate with cloud-based app?
And the issue is that even if you are able to patch your ICS systems, the patches are usually quite old, so there are still vulnerabilities in the latest patches. So to keep it separated is the best thing to do, and have do it securely.
And if I can add something on that is, patching is a way, of course, but how do you want to patch an installation that has been commissioned 10 years ago or maybe 15 years ago and will have to remain running without any production stop? I'm thinking about glass foundry, where we are creating the glass, the furnace. We can't stop it for at least 15 years or maybe 20 years. So patching is not possible in this environment. And in the case where you can patch, as said by Oscar, sometimes the patches are old or the devices are old and patches are not the complete solution. So on that point, we have to divide the question in two parts. The old installation, the brownfield, using old devices, old PLCs, old SCADAs and things like this, and the greenfield, where installation are new and with new devices. And I have an example, unfortunately, it's where I'm coming from. Now, if you use a Siemens PLC, they are having secure life cycle development. It's what we call security by design, and that's possible to patch PLCs, but you have to think very carefully when you will do it, because in all the case you need to stop your production. So this is something which is really important. And also, if you can patch, separating things is always the basics, because you are protecting your IT against any OT potential vectors, and vice versa. You are protecting your OT against any IT vectors attacks. And that's really protecting both of your installation, and not saying IT is better or OT is better, that just to keep things clear and well separated.
Great, thanks for that really comprehensive answer. I think we have time for one more question, which has just come in. Currently, OT teams claim that they're totally air-gapped, so it should not jump in. They keep SCADA system as a black box. What do you suggest in such situation? Happy to read the question again.
No, the question is very clear and the answer will be, but I've spoken too much, so Anastasia maybe, or if you've got the answer, if not I will, but.
Yeah, you can go and I will add, or Oscar.
So Oscar, up to you.
Yeah, if it is an air-gapped environment, they made a risk analysis and wanted air-gapped to have it protected. But there are ways to get data out from an air-gapped environment. But the thing is, you have to think about it not to have double communication. You need to use a data diode or something to export the information from the SCADA system.
So if I can add something on that, that will be very simple. After more than 25 years within the industry, I've been working for defense, I've been working for nuclear installation, and I never saw a real air-gapped system. If someone tells you that your system is air-gapped, he's not a liar, he's not aware about the risk. And why I'm saying this? One day, your air-gapped system, you have to commission it. And to commission it, you need a computer. And where this computer was the day before? Is this computer connected to a different factory for a different customer? Is your system air-gapped? I'm not so sure. The computer that you are using to run your software development tool, I'm thinking about, could be Unity from Schneider, could be PCS7 or TIA Portal from Siemens, or RS Logix 5000 for Rockwell. All those software that are programming your PLCs, You need to have them on a computer to program your PLC. And one day you will plug your computer on your air-gapped system, and your system is no more air-gapped. It's linked to a computer that maybe the day before was linked to the internet for email reading or I don't know what. And by that way, you are bringing the malware or whatever you want onto your installation. So the air-gapped system is just a myth that's maybe connected to nothing within your installation, but one day or another one, it will be connected to something.
Thank you. So I would like to thank our speakers today and everyone who's joined, and thanks for asking questions. There is a handout as well. There's a data sheet if you want to explore a little bit more about the Orange Cyber Defense industrial control system and how we protect them. And yeah, I will wrap it up right now. There is a quick survey that will be triggered as soon as we stop the video, stop the recording. And but yeah, thank you so much, and we hope to see you at the next webinar. Bye.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.